My name is Thomas Anthony Hill.
Hi, I'm Terri Hill.
Terry and my family, we moved from Florida to come here to Atlanta.
My brother moved up here, and for about a year or so, we used to visit him up here, and we really enjoyed being here in Atlanta.
And he taken us up to downtown Atlanta, and I saw all these homeless. I said, Terry, this is where we got to be. We got to come to Atlanta.
We had a ministry in Fort Lauderdale called the Hometown Mission, and every Sunday, we would go out and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, brown bag them, and just search for the homeless all throughout the city. And ever since I met Tom, that's what we did. We served the homeless together, and we had our ministry, and we started praying about it, and the Lord gave Tom a vision of the sanctuary, he called it, and it had a men's center and a women's center and a family center and job training skills and all this, and we really felt led that we were supposed to move up to Atlanta and start this ministry.
And so I said, this is where we got to be. And we went back home and we started things rolling.
I was not working at the time. I was home with the kids, but Tom he had his own business, and
I started selling off some of my business, and Terry come up to Atlanta looking at houses, and we found the house that we want because we're a family of 7. And so Terry needed to find a big house for us all, and she sure did.
And so we just bought it, and we built it. And when it was ready, I moved up here with the kids. It was the summer, and I had previously arranged to have a job at a church. They were starting a school, and I had been a teacher at a Christian school in Fort Lauderdale. So I moved up here. I go to report to them and find out when my first day is, and they proceed to tell me that they changed their mind and they're not opening the school. And so we have this house that we're building up here, and I don't have a job. So I started applying for jobs, and I ended up getting an IT position with Cobb County School Board.
I was still working in business in Florida. And in Florida, I had a landscaping business and a pest control business.
He was taking care of the business in Fort Lauderdale and arranged with a friend, someone who was working with him in the business. He had his own lawn and landscaping company. He was Tom's friend, and we had this one very large account. So this guy was going to run that business, and we would pay him for managing it, but we would still get a very nice check every month. We rented out our house in Fort Lauderdale. We didn't even sell that one. We kept that.
So we was really making really good money. I went into a dealership, and I told him I need this big SUV. It was an Armada. I'll never forget, bought it brand new. I didn't have to put no money down.
We already had another vehicle, but this one was great for the trip. That was our excuse, that we're driving from Fort Lauderdale to Georgia. We needed a big, comfortable vehicle. And so we just bought it because we could, and we could afford it. It wasn't a problem. So we're about to learn a very, very valuable lesson. The economy, 2008, everything that was happening in 2008 and 2009 with the economy, they had to cut back, and they were very proud that they didn't cut back any teacher positions. They were able to keep the teachers, but they cut back the staff, and I was an IT person. I was one of the last 14 people who were hired and one of the 14 people who were let go that year. So now I don't have an income.
The gentleman that I trusted to take care of the account kind of stabbed me in the back, and he ended up taking the account and kind of lied about it, and it was hurting. So I ended up losing that, and Terry lost her job, and we got a family of 7, and we were like, man, what are we gonna do? We got the cars, we got the new big house, and I said, this is not what I come down here for. Terry and I, we just start pulling up our sleeves, trying to find work, whatever we can find. She would get her unemployment check. I think it was like $330-some, and we saw our savings starting to dwindle. And
Tom was working for a pest control company up here, not making hardly anything, just running the route, spraying houses and doing his thing, working 10, 12 hours a day and barely bringing in enough to support the family at the time, trying as hard as he could. But with what we had before us, it just wasn't enough. It became obvious that we couldn't afford the house anymore, so we had to give back the house. And Florida house, we lost that one too.
then I would get visits from someone knocking at the door and say they're here to pick up my car, and I'm like, no, you can't get my car today. It was a repo guy. And I'm like, I need that to try to find work.
Started putting in applications for, to rent places, and they pull your credit. Well, our credit is tanked. Nobody's willing to give us a chance, and just didn't know what to do. One thing that we have always been very firm on is our tithing. No matter whether it's $10 or $10,000, whatever comes in, God gets his 10%, and that's the first. Because the little that came in, we knew came from him anyway.
We were faithful in our giving, and God, you know what we're about? We want to help people, and we find ourselves, we're coming pretty close being homeless ourselves. And as the man in the house, I'm like, God, I can't fix this.
In spite of everything that we were going through, we trusted God. And we knew that, man, we just knew he'd take care of us. And so while we couldn't see it, we knew he had the plan. And I found somebody who had a 5-bedroom home that she was renting that we could afford on Tom's limited income with my little check, my unemployment check. We could afford it. And she took a chance on us.
And I'll never forget that week. We were down to our last, and Terri went to the mailbox, and there was a gift card there. Someone had put the gift card there in the mailbox. And Terri and I looked at each other. We got food. We can buy food.
So after being unemployed for about 6 months, and I had applied for a position at Wellstar in their IT department, because that's what I was doing at Cobb County Schools. I'd never heard from Wellstar, but out of the clear blue sky, I get a call from this guy named Craig. He had an IT business, and he wanted to interview me. And I'm like, how did you even find out about me? Because I've never heard of your company, and I know I didn't apply for you. And he told me that he was visiting the IT department because he has a contracting business that Wellstar subcontracts work to him. And so he was there meeting with one of the managers in the IT department, and he saw my resume on this guy's desk. He said to the guy, he said, hey, are you gonna hire her? And this guy's like, no, I'm not gonna hire her. And Craig says, well, can I have that resume? And so he took the resume and he read it, and he was intrigued enough to call me for an interview. And we talked, and I'll never forget. And I was just waiting. I just felt so good about that interview, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and a month goes by. And I was like, yet again, didn't get the job. And he calls me out of the blue one day, and he apologized for taking so long, and he asked me to meet him at Longhorn Steakhouse up in North Canton. And so I met him there, because he knew that was close by where we were living at the time. And he hands me this folder, and I'm like, what is this? He said, well, this is your job offer. And I was like, you're offering me a job? I'm like, I just start crying. I'm so relieved. And he's like, well, are you gonna look at it? And so I open it up, and right on top was a $500 check with a note that said, I want you to have a happy Thanksgiving. This was at the beginning of November. And he knew I had been unemployed for 6 months and didn't have any money for Thanksgiving dinner. Just the way Craig came into our life was just such a God thing. I mean, who picks up a resume off of someone else's desk and hires them? And 2 weeks after I started working for him, he promoted me. And then a month after that, he promoted me again. And with each promotion, it was a big salary increase. By the time 6 months goes by working with this guy, my salary had been doubled from what I had lost. And I started, not just me, but both Tom and I had a relationship with this Craig.
Terry's boss at the time hired guys to move us in. Had taken all our stuff. We moved into this house that we was renting. All 7 of us lived there, and
we had already given back the Armada. We had one other vehicle, had to give that one back too. We didn't have a vehicle. So Craig, he tells me one day, he's like, you know, here's a couple $1,000, go find yourself a van. And boy, with that, that van, that was the biggest rinky-dink van. Tom and I would just lay our hands on it every single day and pray that it would get us through another day. But if you think about it, the Armada, $40,000 Armada that we bought versus the van that was provided by God through Craig. The van is what we never forget. We remember the stories of everything that happened in that van.
It was just humbling in a sense of losing everything and starting to see how God is starting to put the puzzles together for us.
As I'm working for Craig, and I kept telling him, I don't understand. You hired me. Why would nobody hire me for 6 months? I didn't understand. And he explained to me that in the industry that I was in, you needed certifications, and I didn't have certifications. I had tons of experience, but no certifications. So this man paid for me to take classes and get my certifications. I ended up being his chief operations officer, managing his whole company. And through the experience of working with him, when he closed up his company and moved somewhere else, that I was able to get a job as a project manager because Craig paid for my certifications.
People say, man, why you do what you do? Why are you serving? Because I remember what God done back here, where that we come to help the homeless here, and we nearly went homeless ourselves, so close, and God just put people and given us favor, and it was on our last savings to get a gift card, and things began to happen.
So we're in this 5-bedroom home that we absolutely hated. With all of us living in the home, it was super small, but we could deal with that. But the worst part was the lady who lived next door had chickens, and she had a rooster that would wake us up. His name was Mr. T, and he would wake us up at 5 o'clock in the morning every single day. But we also never forgot Mr. T, because that was just it was a time of amazing growth in our life. Fast forward, we're in a home now. We've been in this home for about 6 years now, and it's about half the size, less than half the size, but we're happy. And we learned an amazing lesson that the Lord had taught us. And we have a whole new understanding of what it means to value the blessing that God has given.
The experience that we have gone through about losing everything and to where we are today. And it's funny that we're in this position of compassion, being a part of the church ministry here. It's an experience that I just saw God's hand on us.
But when you serve Him in the time of need, it just makes, it's like the widow's 2 mites. When you give out of the little that you have, it just means so much more. I wouldn't change, not a thing that happened to us. The whole experience of losing the 2 homes, losing the cars, losing financially, losing those things, because we got so much more value out of the lesson that God had taught us.
You kind of scratch your head with these things that happen that goes on with you. But the one thing I do know, if you don't give up and keep trusting, God is faithful. And I know that we're in a better position, and from the experience, because having God come in right away, giving us what we need, how can I relate to people that come for compassion? How can I relate when someone have a medical bill, or how can I relate if someone got their lights cut off and that, or got their car? I've been there. I've been there. He was preparing us for a time like this. And I take it for nothing what God is doing. So, and that's all I got to say about that.